Hello and welcome to this demonstration of the McAfee removable media. My name is Chris Ellis and I'll walk us through the basic process of using these USB sticks. So this is EPO 4.6.7 and I'm going to go to the policy catalog to show that there are, as usual, quite a few different products checked into EPO, and you have to just simply find the one that you want to manage. In this case it's going to be the endpoint encryption for files and folders 4.2, which as of today is the latest version. You'll notice that there's 10 different policies that we can configure. I'll just walk through the different ones briefly. There's CD and DVD encryption. There's encryption specific options. There's file encryption as well as folder specific encryption. There's some general things we can set up. There's the management of the grant keys. There's some network settings, password complexity rules, and then specific to removable media and user local key options. So we'll start with CD, DVD, and you can see that there's a couple of things you can do here. One is to allow encryption off-site versus on-site. The difference being off-site means you can use the CD, DVD without having EERM installed on the endpoint. Second category was encryption options, and you can see you can preserve file times. There's different things you can do on this. In fact, if you click on the help, I find this really useful when you're learning a product, or you've just checked it in and you're trying to learn it for the first time, is that you can actually read through the context-sensitive help, and it's really useful. You can see on the left it's all the different products you have checked in, and on the right it's specific to the page that you clicked on, so you can read up and understand exactly what you're trying to do very quickly. Very nice. For file encryption, not surprisingly, you can enter a specific file that you want encrypted. Very useful for portability purposes. And then folder encryption, similar concept, but an entire folder would get encrypted, and there's a whole bunch of defaults that are places you may typically want to have things encrypted, like common documents, which is common to all desktops, but by clicking the plus key over there you can actually add as many of these entries as you wish, different options. In fact, let's say you have a standard for always having a folder called My Encrypted Folder. Anything placed in that folder is going to be automatically encrypted, and some error correction there. You can see that it has to be a valid path, and once you have that figured out and apply this policy to machines, they'll all be able to store things in that folder and have them encrypted. Under general, we have just a couple of things like show the icon when you're in a folder, that sort of idea. Under grant keys, this is where you would actually establish, sometimes they're temporary passwords, keys that can last. They're ephemeral, they'll only last for a couple of days, but the keys are all set up there. Moving on to network, you can see that we can actually limit the bandwidth. We can throttle back based on either latency and or the bandwidth available. Password complexity rules, not surprisingly, we can let you play with all those metrics, special characters, numeric, alpha, uppercase, lowercase, so you can meet whatever complexity rules you require for encryption. On the removable media side, not surprisingly, there's quite a few options in here. Again, on-site, off-site access options. So if it's off-site, you can use the USB simply entering a password, which I'll demonstrate in a moment. On-site means it has to be plugged into a machine running EERM. And this lets you say how much of the device you want encrypted. Typically, you want to encrypt the entire thing. Otherwise, people may accidentally restrict the data on the unprotected part. Authentication methods, password or certificate, and recovery methods, there's quite a few. One I don't show on the screen is actually the questions and answers, where you can actually let the user set up their own questions and answer them for recovery purposes. You can have some custom text displayed when you insert the media. Because we were doing this presentation as part of understanding what IT PIN is all about, I use that as a little demo. So you could customize that to put pretty much whatever you want in a bilingual format at that. And devices that may be exempt from the encryption rules. Again, there's always going to be a need for some sort of exemption, and I'm just going to show again on the help. I clicked on the little question mark again. Now on this particular policy page, since it has so many options, not surprisingly, it has a lot of good information on it, on what the options mean, on what the impact would be from an encryption perspective. But let's shift gears here and actually take a look from a demo perspective, from the end user perspective itself. I'm going to start by plugging in a basic USB. Now I have multiple types of USBs, whether they're little tiny ones that are cheap, or they're those terabyte drives you can get, or those even larger terabyte drives. They're all considered removable media, and they can all be used in this context. But I'm going to start with just this little guy. Just for identification purposes, I call it Chris 8GB. And when I plug it in, because this endpoint has the endpoint encryption installed, you'll see that it's telling you that you pretty much have to either encrypt this device based on our policy that exists, or we'll make it write protected. And you're given the option to initialize it or not. So I'll start with the not. I say, no, I don't want to encrypt this thing. It's my own device. So it'll make it write protected. So I can still copy files off of it, but it does in fact prevent me, and this is from a data loss protection perspective, it prevents me from being able to copy potentially confidential or restricted content onto the stick. So even trying to delete files off of it is protected because of the write protection. I'm just showing that there. And now I'm opening up a C drive local to this machine. I'm going into my temp drive where I've set up this my data file. And sure as heck, you see it can't be written because of write protection. So it really just proves that, in fact, you've protected this USB if you're not going to let it get encrypted. Good news, though, of course, you can actually copy things like the McAfee agent, which I've grabbed there, and copied onto my C drive. So one way only. Now let's redo that. This time, however, I'll actually initialize the device. I get the same error. I get the same message. It's not an error. And it's asking me to encrypt the device. This time I say go ahead, and I'll change the volume label from its default to my corp, so you can see that show up later. Again, I can't select the protected area because it was written in policy that I had to do the entire device. I do need to create my own password. This will be the same password that you folks will use to decrypt the USB that you're watching this video from, McAfee 123. And if it doesn't meet the criteria for complexity, it will throw this message up to you. I'm just really showing that the McAfee 123 bang actually does meet the password requirements. I just wanted to show you a fail. And then the recovery password can also be set up. And again, this may be done through an organization who may be administering these keys and setting these up. And then they would give the help desk the recovery password so that if you as a user forget your individual, there's always a backdoor. It tells me that there's already some data on my USB stick and I want to keep it. So the nice thing is it'll encrypt and replace the content on your disk right back onto the newly encrypted device. So it goes through the steps of copying the files. It says 30 items because actually in one of the folders there's quite a few files. Now it's creating new volume on that USB. And it goes through the process. This takes, on the 4 gig sticks when I initialized them from net new, it took less than 30 seconds. When there's data already on them, it takes a little bit longer. This one took about 45 seconds. It wipes the temporary storage and then completes the initialization. Gives you that message. Initialization is complete. So let's try it now on a non-McAfee system. I'm taking that same USB stick that I just initialized and I'm going to put it into my other server in my little home office. And what happens here is it opens up a folder and you can see the MFE EERM executable. You simply double click on that. It runs the app which lets you put in the password that you entered previously. Again, it's McAfee 123 bang. And then it opens up the, you can see it's My Core now. Lets you have access to it through your Windows Explorer, and not surprisingly the files are there. And again, to show the proof that it is now a read-write device, I'm going to take that same folder, that same data, and copy it this time successfully onto the USB stick because it does allow bidirectional. Good news is my data is now actually encrypted. So I can now disconnect that USB stick knowing that everything on it is fully protected. So thanks very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this video.